And it's Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military, and veterans proudly since 2008. And our Army football huddle show post Syracuse, and then going into the bye week before Army will return home to Michie Stadium to play Boston College. And playing another team from the ACC, a Power 5 program, and give me another test for the Black Knights. Now, with us tonight, our producer director, Richard Miller. How are you, Richard?
Very well, Ken. Tough game for Army heading into the bye week. Now, gotta get back to work.
Okay, yeah, and calling in from Pelham, my colleague from our CaMMVetsMedia report, Jack McGuirk. How are you?
Good, very well, Ken. Happy that the weather is starting to clear up here in New York after a long, wet, rainy weekend.
Gosh, it was nice to see the sun come out just before sunset this afternoon, blue sky, and what a relief after 3-4 straight days of rain. And calling in from South Jersey in the class of '92, former Army football player Steve Shalou. Steve, how are you?
Ken, doing really well today.
That's great. Well, coming off of the Syracuse game, a 29-16 win by the Army over Army. The best news was that Army football player Andre Miller, who appeared seriously hurt, was down for I'd say almost over 10 minutes, being attended to by the Army staff, being stabilized, is okay, and returned to West Point on Sunday, and was walking around, and so all the basics are good. And what a relief that was for all Army football fans, all college football fans, that Andre Miller was okay. Steve, what was your thought when you saw that incident and Andre really down on the ground, face down, when I saw him after that play in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, it's always a somber event when something like that happens. Football is such a violent sport, and the bodies and the size of the players have gotten so much bigger, and the speed of the game has gotten so much faster that, everything and anything could happen out there on the field. So, I definitely, there's definitely a ton of concern, and you just, pray that it's, the precautions that they're taking are, precautions and nothing more than that. And in this case, I think we had good news coming out of it. I happened to be at the football game with when against Rutgers when Eric LeGrand went down, and it's a something that haunts me still to this day, to have been at that game, to know that his life was forever changed, doing something that he loved. But I guarantee you, any football player who's playing understands what the risks are, and they take that risk freely, and they want to get out there and they want to play for their brothers and take care of each other. And they hope and pray that nothing happens like this. And I'm so glad that he's up and around and able to continue to play the sport.
Yeah, I got to is Eric LeGrand is doing a lot of great, wonderful things. Does broadcasting and entrepreneur projects, and he's got a new coffee shop in New Jersey. Got a chance to visit over the summer. Very pleasant place to visit, right by the train station there. And Steve, let me ask you. I was at that game too. It was our first year covering Army football. I remember watching the play happen from the press box. It was a kickoff. Eric LeGrand was in the middle of the wave of Rutgers tacklers. Malcolm Brown caught the kickoffs, returning it for Army, and Eric put his head down, unfortunately, and into Malcolm Brown's shoulder, I guess. And either one of them got up. Fortunately, Malcolm was able to recover after a few weeks from a shoulder injury, but Eric was paralyzed. Since then, the rules seem to be changed to try to have most kickoffs kicked into the end zone for touchbacks, certainly at the college level. And it decreases the amount of tackles at high speed on kickoffs, which some in college football say is one of the most dangerous aspects of the game. What do you think of that? Some people said, why don't you eliminate kickoffs and just put the ball down at the 25-yard line? What's your thought on that?
Well, I mean, I think it's still a good thing to have the ability for the play and the ability to run the kickoff back if you're scouting or you have the athletes to be able to do that, or if there's you need a big play. And I think one of the interim steps that they did also during that time was they got rid of that wedge of 3 or 4 people. They would join arms or join hands, and it was just a battering ram contest to see who could. And you had wedge busters, and it was just a recipe for neck injuries and disaster. So we've gotten used to it. It was a little bit off-putting with all the fair catches and the letting the ball go into the end zone, but some of the most violent hits and some of the most dangerous hits happen on that particular play. So I like that there's a little bit more safety in the game.
And you mentioned to me, we all watched Tim Kelly and the Army medical staff attend Andre Miller, and how prepared they are for those situations. They drill for it. They have a team of trainers and physicians ready to go on the field at a moment's notice. And you mentioned to me earlier that Tim Kelly, the head trainer for West Point, does some work for the NFL and is so highly respected. And he was your favorite trainer too back in your college days.
Yeah, Tim arrived at West Point, I think, my sophomore year, and he was relatively new to the sports medicine arena. Gene Benner was the long and he was a legend in Army. He was the head trainer, which Tim is now. So Tim had a special technique of taping that he would tape my ankles because my ankles were a little fussy, and he had a special technique to lock my heel on that. And he would tape me, and he pretty much taped me my entire career. So I've known Tim since I played, and I've stayed friends with Tim Kelly for all these years. And he's a cornerstone of the program up there, especially for the athletic training department. And he's always challenging the ways that they do their business up there. And you never know whether it be on a football field, on a rugby pitch, or on an ice rink where an emergency will happen and somebody might get cut, and you jump into action. And thank goodness, we've got some of the best and the brightest. And I think a lot of the athletic trainers come to West Point because they get to work with a program that has such fine young men and women. And it's a really great job where they can have a lot of autonomy, and you get to work with great minds like Tim Kelly. So, hats off to him. I was in the end zone of where that happened, and I got to see a lot of what was going down. And it was a well orchestrated drill, if you will, on what they did in terms of getting out to him, getting the shoulder pads off, getting the helmet off, getting him rotated, immobilizing him, and then getting him off the field. I think they did a phenomenal job, and hats off and kudos to Tim and his team.
Absolutely. And we get to welcome in Colonel Sam Houston from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, from the class of 1987. Colonel, how are you tonight?
Hey, yeah, I'm good, Ken. I'm sorry I'm late. I had a phone call.
That's okay. Glad to have you join us. And we were just starting to talk about Army's game at Syracuse, a 29-16 win by Syracuse. And certainly a game where Army got off to a great start. Did a 17-play drive to go 75 yards. Culminated after Bryson Daly had a run that was reviewed on television and said that it stopped on the 1 foot line. That Jacoby Buchanan did his specialty, got the 1 yard run, and finished that drive. 9 minutes and 25 seconds to start the game. And Syracuse barely had the ball in the first quarter, and Army dominated through the first half. But I think one telling moment was in the second quarter, they went 19 plays to go 64 yards and had to settle for a 38-yard Quinn Moretzky field goal. So Army led 10-3. Colonel, what was your thought following the game?
The first half, I think Syracuse was not expecting the violence of execution that Army brought to the field for the first half. And it rocked them back on their heels a little bit. And that was on both sides of the ball, obviously. And Army took advantage of that to the most that they could, but they left some on the table as far as the scoreboard was concerned. I think Bo Nicholas Paul was the one who missed the pick six on Syracuse's very first possession, right in his hands, clear dash to the end zone. That was a moment that could have been another quick 7 after Army had already done their opening drive and put 7 on the board. That would have made it 14. And late in the game, the gods of football intervened when Noah Short got absolutely mobbed on a pass play on his pass pattern and knocked flat, and it didn't get called. And Army had to settle for a field goal. And what could have been I'm not saying that they would have definitely scored a touchdown on that last drive, but they would have been in a lot better position to have made an attempt at scoring a touchdown on that last drive. So it very easily could have been 21-3 at halftime. Syracuse, being the team that they are much more, they're bigger, they're more talented than Army. Not necessarily bigger across the line of scrimmage, but they clearly were a more talented team. And everyone said in the West Point Society gathering that I was at, everyone said, let's not let this be a tale of two halves, because we knew that Syracuse was now going to go in at halftime and make some adjustments. And they did. And Army's adjustments just did not keep pace with the athleticism of the Syracuse football team. And the telling moment of the second half, I believe, happened early on when Syracuse had the ball. They drove, then they went for it on fourth down, and the Army defense held them. And Army got the ball back, still up 10-3 in the third quarter, early in the third quarter. And the offense, which had been punishing Syracuse up until the end of the first half, suddenly could not move the ball. And
it was 3 and out. Yeah.
You saw the time of possession get flipped from one half to the next. You saw the scoring obviously get flipped from one half to the next. And then you had the unfortunate injury to Andre Miller, which I really do believe that took a lot of wind out of Army's sails. To see that happen to one of your brothers on the field, and then to be able to emotionally pick yourself back up and get back on the field and play. I think that it was the very next play after play resumed that Syracuse scored a touchdown. And I can't blame the defense for that. So did Army have the possibility of upsetting Syracuse? Yes. Did they? No. And is anyone surprised? I don't think so. So you got to pick up the pieces, strive on. You got a bye week to do it, and let's heal up and be ready for Boston College a week from Saturday.
Yeah, I just thought, and I spoke to Coach Monken after the game, that opening up the third quarter, Syracuse got the ball, and Army stopped them on the drive as you described. But then Army gets the ball back and has a 3 and out, and Syracuse gets the ball. And their offense gets in gear, and they move down the field 4 plays and score. 13-yard pass from Garrett Schrader to Hatcher, and then they just seemed like they had their passing game going in the second half. Damian Alford had 9 catches for 135 yards. He had these big bright orange gloves on, and he seemed like he was jumping over the Army defensive backs to make plays. And so they were 21 of 26 passing on completions, 245 yards. Steve, what was your thought? Is there anything Army could have done better in the second half? Dino Baber, the Syracuse coach, said he made an adjustment on the defense in the second half. He didn't say what it was, but he said he made one change to the defense in the second half. And they seem to, be able to stop Army's running game in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I think the adjustment was probably that they weren't going to necessarily overly respect the pass and just shut down the inside run game and focus on the quarterback because we got a little bit tight again in our play calling. I think, we were a little bit more, flexible and inventive in the first half. And then we were playing from the front. I think we tightened up a little bit on that. We're still having a difficulty running the option. The quarterback just doesn't seem to want to eliminate the pitch key. So the one time we actually ran an option, he pitched the ball way too early, and it gave all the defenders the opportunity to pursue the ball with the back instead of eliminating one of them and letting the running back make a move. So, I still think that our offense is a work in progress, and I don't think we were as aggressive. Now we were bigger than they were up front, and I think we could have, with a little bit more of a power game, and maybe some trap and maybe some counter, we would have been able to get them out of position a little bit, found some seams to slash. But that's not our game right now. So, it was a little bit tough in the second half, and we're still growing. We're still going to have to find our way.
Yeah, Jacoby Buchanan certainly was converting the fourth down. He had 3 fourth down conversions in the first half, and even with everybody in the stadium knowing he was going to get the ball, he was pounding out those first downs.
Yeah, I think Jacoby Buchanan is now, I think he's number 6 on the all-time touchdown list for Army, maybe 6th or 7th now. He's ahead of, I think he's ahead of Doc Blanchard maybe. But anyway, what I was going to say is we're 3 games into the season, and before the season started, the debate, 4 games into the season, sorry. No. Yeah, 4 games into the season. I get it right. Sorry. It's been
you were at 2 of them, the 2 that we didn't get to.
This week has been just a rough week, man. I got to say, only 2 days in, and it's already like knocking my box of rocks around in my brain housing group. Before the season started, this is where I was going with this. On the on the Academy forum and with some other people I would talk to, everyone would say, I can't believe we've abandoned the triple option. And I would always come back and say, I just have a hard time believing that we've completely abandoned that offense. I have to believe it's still in the playbook. And we haven't seen it yet. However, I'm just going to make my paid advertisement right here for the triple option. Steve was talking about Army's adjustment in the second half and the sudden vanilla play calling that seemed to take place. And I personally think that if Army was going to make an adjustment in the second half, a game against a team like Syracuse, the perfect thing to have done in the second half would have been to suddenly come out running triple option football in the second half. And it would have been like Rocky Balboa, doing that fight right-handed, and then he goes back to southpaw in the middle of the fight and catches Apollo Creed completely by surprise. Why not? Why not do that? Syracuse is going to make an adjustment that is geared towards your football, your offensive scheme. Why not come back with a scheme that is going to offer you the best opportunity to do the type of trap blocking and hard-nosed plays between the tackles that Steve was just talking about? Why not? I don't know. That's just my 10 cents worth. That is just my paid advertisement. And I'm just saying, hey, coach, if that triple option is still in the playbook, please be ready to bring it out as an adjustment. I'm not saying run the whole game doing it, but good Lord, I imagine how you could take some people by surprise when you unexpectedly come out and start running that triple
Let's get
option.
back to that in a second. I just want to have Jack McGuirk pipe in and offer a comment. What was your thought watching the game?
Well, it was a tough break for Army, but Syracuse is a great team. And I was looking up at stat that Sam was just talking about with Jacoby Buchanan. He's actually, Sam was right. Jacoby's tied now in 7th place on the all-time touchdown list. That was his 27th touchdown, tied with Ahmad Bradshaw. And there's an interesting stat I noticed with the Army defense, which is in the first 4 games this season so far, opponents have been scoreless in the first quarter. So the Army defense starts off pretty strong, but I guess later in the game, the teams are able to score. And of course, one of the big highlights in this one, in the 4th quarter, he had that 80-yard pass to Noah Short. But unfortunately, Syracuse came out on top. Army, time of possession, controlled the ball. Again, 33 minutes to Syracuse's 26. So time of possession, Army won that game, but unfortunately, they lost the game. So they'll try to rebound against Boston College.
Yeah, that's a good couple of points there, Jack. And Sam and Steve, maybe do you feel Bryson Daly is maturing as a quarterback? He's got 4 games under his belt that he started, and this was quite a test. He played very well, certainly at Texas San Antonio the week before. Had a good first half. But one of the things that stands out for me, and it reflects on what Sam was just talking about, is he ran the ball 20 times of Army's 46 rushes and gained 73 yards, 2.4 a carry. Actually, Jacoby Buchanan had more yards at fullback. Jacoby was breaking through the line on some of the short yardage situations, 3.7. But he's still running the ball a lot. Do you feel like he's getting enough plays out to the perimeter runners? And also, what did he do throwing? He was 9 of 21. So Army threw the ball about a third of the time, a little less than a third of the time on Saturday. How do you feel about how Bryson Daly is running the new offense?
Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Okay. Well, one thing that you cannot deny about Bryson Daly is he's a tough warrior, and he's a bruiser, and he's a pretty big fella. I heard somebody comparing to Ronnie Makeda again this weekend, and I can't, I agree with that. Ronnie Makeda was also from Texas, I believe, and raw boned out there, just running the offense and taking charge of football games and running over defenders and things like that. So Bryson Daly's certainly doing that. At this point of the season, Ken, I feel like Bryson Daly would be more in command of triple option than he is in command of this particular offense. That's not a strike against him. This past game, he seemed to be trying too hard. And what I mean by that is his passing was not fluid. He badly overthrew open receivers on more than one occasion. Yes, he did have a couple of passes dropped. Yes, he did have his 80-yard completion to Noah Short, in the 4th quarter that made the score a little more respectable. But he just seemed to be hurrying things a little bit too much. And when the chips were down, he didn't seem to be running the offense, which is with as much of a grasp as he was demonstrating in San Antonio. Now, I understand that part of that is play calling, but it also goes down to the execution on the field and how well the defense is reading and reacting to what it is you're trying to run. So you got to give it to Syracuse. Obviously, they had a part in making things a little more rough on Bryson Daly in the second half. But if you look at his passing in the first half, it wasn't very crisp either. So when Army had the momentum, he still wasn't throwing the ball very effectively. And one thing that I think that has become pretty obvious about this particular offense, they do run still the majority of the time, but when you do pass, you got to make the play work. Otherwise, just like in triple option, you're now behind on the chains, and it makes it a little bit harder to overcome, especially when you're geared down against a FBS team that is right now in the hunt in the ACC, like Syracuse. But I think Bryson Daly, he's the right guy to be running the offense. He's the right guy to be playing quarterback. I don't have any doubt about him being the quarterback. And I think that he can be a very great quarterback for Army.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on what Sam said, you know, I think Bryson Daly's doing a great job, and he always seemed to be one step away from breaking one in Syracuse. He'd get tripped up at the very end, just couldn't get through the hole. You know, if he played the way he played against Syracuse against ULM, we blow their doors off. So, I mean, I think right now where we are is I think he's developing, but the speed of his development is clouded by the opponent we're playing against. So, you know, we play against Syracuse undefeated. You know, Syracuse, mark my word, they're probably going to beat Clemson. They give Clemson fits, and they'll probably beat Clemson this week. So you've got a team like Syracuse, and he didn't look as crisp. And a lot of it is because of the athletes and the players that he was going up against. You know, we'll see against Boston College. Boston College, you know, the jury's still out on it. I think Syracuse is a much better team than Boston College. So he may look better against Boston College just because they're not as athletic or as talented as Syracuse was against us. You know, we get against a team like Delaware State or get against a team like UTSA, he'll look better. So I think he's on schedule. He's making good decisions, and I think he's hard-nosed. And he's a player and a leader that his players are going to want to play for. So I think we're going in the right direction with him.
Okay. One thing I noticed is that he and Isaiah Alston did not seem in sync. In the first half, there was a play where he threw the ball towards the corner of the end zone, and Isaiah Alston did a post pattern and ended up 1 of 6 completions to Isaiah on the day. Well, they did really well throwing to Noah Short, 6 completions for 105 yards, including the 80-yard completion in the fourth quarter. But that's where that surprised me a little bit that Bryson Daly and Isaiah Alston didn't seem to be on the same page for some of the plays.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Some, you know, that would be an interesting question for you to ask Coach in terms of, you know, are they running the right routes or is the quarterback throwing to the wrong pattern?
Because they'd done so well at Texas San Antonio doing those fly patterns down the sideline, and it looked like it was, you know, a summer afternoon when they were just practicing throwing the long ball to each other. But you know, it could be something in the Syracuse defense that confused Bryson Daly, you know, at a particular moment.
I'm not really familiar on how sophisticated the pass game is for Army. You know, before when we were running, you know, coming out of the flex bone, you know, they were telling you you're going to be running a wheel route, and that's what you're going to run. But are they reading and running are they breaking the routes off based upon the coverage they get? I don't know if it's that sophisticated or not. That's a good question for me to ask when you get an opportunity to ask, because if they are, you know, in a first year of running those type of things and reading what you're seeing versus what the quarterback sees, and if you're doing that type of higher level route running, it's going to take some time for them to get on the same page on that, and it could explain why they're running off different routes and they're throwing somewhere else. So that'd be an interesting concept to dig into.
Yeah, it's also the question of if Bryson is standing, looking at the defense, can he change the routes? Can he change the play? And are they at the level where they can hear the change of signal and change the routes, change the play? You know, when the quarterback is just waiting for from the snap in the shotgun.
It happens all the time in pro, right? A tap in the helmet, a look, or that's why they go and the quarterbacks travel to Florida and run with their receivers for 2 or 3 weeks in the summertime. I don't know, and that's the question, right? Is that something we have gotten to where we have a route tree where if they're playing inside quarter that you're going to run an out, or I don't know if they have that type read and throw type situation as of yet, but I'll definitely dig into that.
Now let's see if we can talk to Army offensive coordinator Drew Thatcher. I don't know if we're going to talk to him this week, but certainly next week we'll have a chance to chat with him on that point. Now let's go to Jack McGuirk. Has been following closely what Navy and Air Force have been doing. Jack, do you want to give us a report on that?
Sure. Well, Navy had a bye week over this past weekend, but this Saturday they're going to be hosting South Florida. That's going to be Navy's second conference game of the season. They had their first one. It was that close game against Memphis that ultimately Memphis won. So Navy's hoping to get their first conference win of the year this Saturday against South Florida. Air Force, on the other hand, they're undefeated, 4-0 now after a 45-20 win over San Jose State. The Falcons had 428 yards total offense, 400 rushing. John Eldridge III and Emmanuel Michel both rushed for over 100 yards. Emmanuel Michel rushed for 148 yards, had 3 rushing touchdowns, including a 17-yard run with 10:53 left in the first half. Eldridge ran for 102 yards, had 2 rushing touchdowns, 5-yard touchdown run in the third quarter, and a 34-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. San Jose State actually had a 20-10 lead with 3:24 left in the first half before the Falcons scored 35 unanswered points to win the game. San Jose State was scoreless in the second half of the game. Air Force free safety Trey Taylor led the Falcons with 8 tackles and had an interception, which he ran back for 51 yards. And Air Force is going to be hosting San Diego State on Saturday. And it's interesting, Army made adjustments to their offense because of the rule change. It seems like Air Force is sticking with that triple option rushing offense, and they're having a lot of success with it.
Yeah, Sam, what's your thought on how Air Force is maintaining its running game, having the quarterback under center, given they're dealing with the same rules changes that Army and Navy are dealing with?
Yeah, I'm going to preface this by saying that, I don't like Air Force, and we know that.
We know that.
He doesn't either.
That's a given.
But I'm going to tell you something. I have also said in previous huddles that we have held, as much as we want to dislike Air Force and as much as we want to dislike Troy Calhoun and his staff, what I have said, and I think Steve has also concurred on this, Air Force runs the most imaginative play calling of triple option of all the service academies, even when all 3 of them were running triple option, and they still do. And I watched that game. It's the first Air Force game that I've actually been able to sit and watch. And blocking rule changes or not, Air Force has adjusted their triple option to still be able to out-physical their opponents, especially running on the perimeter. And if you look at that 30-something yard run in the fourth quarter by Eldridge, I think that play came on 4th down. And if it did not make the ESPN highlight for top 10 plays, it should. Go back and look at it. It is a masterpiece of a run with additional perimeter blocking, and how the guy managed to not step out of bounds even after he hurdled a defender, and then broke tackle after tackle, even all the way down on the 5-yard line to get into that end zone. Air Force or not, that young man made one of the best runs I have seen on a triple option perimeter play in a long time. And it is worth going back and watching again. Air Force is tough, and they're always tough, and they're sticking to their guns with triple option. And whatever they're doing, it continues to work. And if you look at Air Force's schedule this year, Air Force has a legitimate shot to run the table. So anyone who thinks that we're going to
Well,
roll
it's a certain
into Denver,
date in early November that they're going to have to.
well, yeah, I was just
deal
about to
with.
address that, but I'm just going to make sure that everyone knows. Anyone who thought that, you know, with all of the last of the turnbacks have now graduated and everything, that we were just going to roll into Denver and show Air Force is where it's at. I've got another thing coming. I'm going to tell you straight up, Army better play its best A game of A games. Like, you know, we're talking like major A-man game when they roll into Denver to play Air Force, because Air Force is just looking really good. And they stuck it to San Jose State on Friday night at San Jose State. And did they ever? It was like they grabbed San Jose State by the throat and they just monkey stomped San Jose State until they were just a bloody pulp on the turf by the end of the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Well, got a few weeks left before we get to see Air Force up close and personal out at the Broncos Stadium in Denver. Of course, Navy's going to get the opportunity shortly to see Air Force. And let's go to Richard. Richard, let's talk about some of the games. You know, when you look at last week, Florida State over Clemson is going to play Syracuse next week. USC over Arizona State. And of course, the game of the day for last second heroics, Ohio State scoring a last play of the game touchdown to defeat Notre Dame by 17-14. That was really quite a finish for that game in Notre Dame Stadium. Richard, tell us a little bit now. What else did you follow? Obviously, Oregon's big win over Colorado, 42-6.
Yes, I followed
expecting,
that game.
Were you expecting Colorado to get beat that badly in that game?
Frankly, I wasn't expecting Colorado to get beat that game, but I did have a feeling that maybe Colorado's luck might run out a little bit. Since Oregon's a top 10, since Oregon's the 10th ranked team in the country, Colorado may end up having their hands full, and they got a number done on them.
Anyone have a comment on Deion Sanders? Finally, hitting a bit of a wall, playing a very good Oregon team, losing 42-6. Anyone have a comment on that?
I don't think it was surprising. I honestly, the week before, Colorado State really should have won that game that went into overtime. Colorado State just made enough mistakes in the last, and Colorado made just enough plays in the last few minutes of that game to let Colorado come back and tie the game. But otherwise, Colorado State actually had Colorado on the ropes. I'm not surprised that Colorado got exposed. And it says nothing to Coach Primetime and his program. I really think that he's got Colorado on the road to rebound big time. It's just, you got to remember, you're talking about a team that was 1-11 last season, and he's still got basically the same talent pool that he's working with. So it's going to take some time, and there will be some road bumps along the way. But I think that we're still seeing a Colorado team that's resurging.
Yeah, absolutely. Massive use of the transfer portal to acquire players in 1 year. I'm sure they will get better given a little bit more time. Richard, what other games stood out for you?
What other games stood out for me from last week? Let's see. Number 4, Florida State in overtime, 31-24 over Clemson. Florida State is now 4-0. Clemson is 2-2 on the season.
Is this
number 2?
Let's stop on that one for a second. We have a little more time tonight. What do you think about Dabo Swinney and Clemson seeming to not be the powerhouse that they've been in recent years? Some say that Dabo Swinney is has not been leveraging the transfer portal like some other programs have.
You know, I'll take this one because, I mean, if you go hand in hand with what Sam was talking about with Coach Sanders and what he has done, I mean, I think that the optimal situation lies somewhere in between Sweeney and Sanders, somewhere in between there. I mean, I think they both are working at the extremes of where they could be right now. Dabo's like, hey, listen, I don't want to build a program with a bunch of transfer portals. I just want to build a program for my guys and do that. And that's not working in college football any longer. And I think he'll have to reevaluate that stance because he is losing his power base. And he's not relevant anymore, not only in college football top 25, or the playoff picture, but he's not relevant in the ACC at this point. And again, I think Syracuse will beat him this weekend. Syracuse gives Clemson fits, and they've got their number. So he's a smart guy. He's going to adapt or die. But there were a lot of talks of him possibly taking over some of these next level programs like Ohio State, or if Day would stumble against Michigan again or whatever else. I think all that has come back down to earth, and I think he'll have to adjust, or he's going to find himself into a pickle.
What else you got, Richard?
What else I've got from this week? Let's say number 16 Oklahoma 20-6 over Cincinnati. Oklahoma is now 4-0 on the season.
Is this Cincinnati wondering why Oklahoma couldn't leave the Big 12 a year earlier, and taking it on the chin now, with their coach leaving, going to Wisconsin? Is Cincinnati now going to wonder why in the world they wanted to join the Big 12? I'll have to see if they can maintain their program. But it'll be interesting to see. But Big 12 is going to be a different type of conference going forward, with Texas and Oklahoma leaving next year, joining the Southeast Conference. Rich, what else you got? Anything?
Anything else? Number 20 Miami 41-7 over Temple. Number 18 Duke 41-7 over UConn. UConn's 0-4. Well, Duke is 4-0 on the season. Number 13 Alabama defeated Ole Miss 24-10. Number 11 Utah defeated number 22 UCLA 14-7. The Utah 4-0. That was UCLA's first loss. Number 23 Tennessee all over UTSA 45-14 in that game. Arkansas and LSU number 12. LSU 34-31 in that game. Daniels with four touchdowns for the Tigers in that game. The Florida Gators, they took a chop out of Charlotte 22-7. Mertz with 257 yards and a touchdown in that game. Washington State 38-35. Ward for the Cougars had four touchdowns on the game. Also, you have number 7 Penn State 31-0 over Iowa. Penn State is now 4-0 on the season. Allah had four touchdowns for the victory. Number 3 Texas defeated Baylor 38-6. The Texas Longhorns are now 4-0 on the season. Ewers had one touchdown, threw for 293. The two-time defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs all over UAB 49-21. Back in that game, 3 touchdowns, 338 yards. Edwards on 12 attempts for 66 yards, had also 2 touchdowns. Flowers for the Bulldogs also caught two touchdown passes in that game.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, good, Richard. Hey, just for a second, since we have a little more time, we're in a bye week next week. Running down what the American Conference looks like, the discussion, as we said last week, is that Army may very well be in serious discussions with the American Conference on taking the spot left by SMU joining the Atlantic Coast Conference. And looking at some of the teams, how they're faring, UAB lost big to Georgia, 49-21. Temple lost to Miami, 41-7. UTSA, that Army just beat, lost to Tennessee, 45-14. Charlotte lost to Florida, 22-7. SMU lost to TCU. Of course, SMU is leaving after this year. Tulsa beat Northern Illinois, 22-14. Illinois defeated Florida Atlantic down by Richard. Richard's going to be following Florida Atlantic very closely going forward in his neck of the woods. And Rice in South Florida, they're both staying in the conference. Is that correct? Rice and South Florida?
I believe they are.
Yeah, so South Florida won that one, 42-29. East Carolina, 44-0 over Gardner-Webb. Tulane, 36-7 over Nichols. And Missouri defeated Memphis, 34-27. Who do you, if Army were to play a schedule in America, what are some of the teams you see there that could really be tough opponents for Army? Certainly East Carolina, Memphis, but Army would be, and UAB. Everybody says UAB is a growing program. How do you feel Army would compete in that?
I think that would be, it's a much different conference situation than the Conference USA was for Army during that time. I mean, I think that we could be definitely competitive in this conference. This looks kind of a lot like the Mountain West does for Air Force. I think we should be able to be pretty good in here. You know, if you look through what you're talking about here, and with the transfer portal, it's no longer a 3-4 year building process. It can happen pretty quickly, right? So you never know which one of these. The thing about this is with the transfer portal, they can come in pretty quickly, and the coaching staff can leave pretty quickly because this is a pretty transient league for somebody that has success. But if you look at some of the teams that are on here, you know, Florida Atlantic, we talked a lot about that. You know, with Richard, Florida Atlantic has an incredible coach. You know, Herman, who was the coach at Texas, who had a lot of success and kind of went off into the abyss for a little while, is back at Florida Atlantic. He'll have that program turned around. Probably within 2 years, that program will probably be challenging to win the conference. You know, Memphis is always difficult. South Florida is always difficult. Tulane has been difficult as of late. You know, they've got a really good coach that is in the ilk of a Jeff Monken, and they coach very similar. SMU is going to be out. Temple, they're a troubled program right now. Tulsa's up and down depending upon whether or not they've got a really good quarterback or not. North Texas never really, you know, they shined a little bit, but their coach is gone. So, you know, as you go up and down this, Rice has always had difficulty. UTSA, when the 37-year-old quarterback leaves UTSA, they're not going to be as tough. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how this plays out. But we would be definitely in the mix of this. And we're not running a unique enough offense where, you know, they'll pick up our number. We'll have to play straight up. So I think we can do well in this conference for sure.
Okay, well, we'll see.
One thing that
Army makes an announcement on that.
Yeah, Kim.
Sam,
one thing
I don't know if
one
we've
thing
had
about
you on the show. Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing about the AAC that was a piece of information that got shared this past week that we were talking about last week, and it was about how, you know, how would Army and Navy approach each other. Navy's athletic director Gladchuk announced this past week that if Army was in the conference, that Navy and Army would not play each other during the regular season at all, and that their game the second Saturday of December would be preserved as a non-conference game.
And someone asked what if the two we're in position to play each other in the conference championship game. Is there any thought on what happens then? Maybe it was,
I think that the arrangement, based on what Gladchuck said, is that Navy and Army would be in the same division, I guess.
so they'd have two
that way they
separate
would never-
divisions, and
Yeah, that way they would never face each other in the championship game.
okay, well, let's hope that that's a possibility, that both Army and Navy were at the top of the conference and create an interesting situation. It seems like it happens in basketball, possibly going for the regular season to the Patriot League playoffs on occasion.
I would trust Bernie Madoff more than I would Gladchuck, whatever he said. So it's just my that's my Sam has this thing with Air Force. I've got my thing with the Navy athletic director. So off we go.
Okay. Well, let's see what if and when an announcement comes from West Point and what happens. That, by the way, and you guys have both worked for the government. You know what? I remember before the Boston College game in Chestnut Hill 7 or 8 or 9 years ago, that Army, the government shut down just about this time of year because the budget ends the end of September, and Army had trouble figuring out what budget they could pay for the trip on, and they eventually found a budget within the Army Athletic Association to pay for the bus trip up to Boston College, because apparently they couldn't use any federal government funds, and we may be looking at that happening shortly. Army in football has 2 home games coming up. Hopefully the any government shutdown is over by the time they go to LSU, but a lot of disruption. Do either of you remember that incident? I remember talking to the athletic director about it, and they really had to figure out a unique strategy to be able to spend money on athletics when the government shut down.
I think with the formation of the AWPAA, which is now separate from any government funding, that would not be an issue any longer.
Well, that's good. Certainly, hopefully the government doesn't shut down for a lot of important reasons, but we'll see. But it did have an impact. I remember on a lot of speculation, because that was before Army formed its separate financing organization for athletics. So we'll see what happens with that one. Richard, what games you got this weekend coming up to take a look at? In week 5 of college football, it's amazing we're at week 5 already. I see Tulsa's going to play Temple.
Let's see. In
That's
terms of
American Conference
games
game.
that are catching my eye, let's see on this schedule of real importance. You have number 22 Florida taking on Kentucky. That will be at 12 noon. Utah is taking on number 19 Oregon. Utah is number 10. That will be a 9 o'clock game. Saturday you've got number 6 Penn State 4-0 taking on Northwestern, which is 500 at 2-2 on the season.
You guys surprised Northwestern is 2-2 after all the challenges they've had in their off season?
Yeah.
That's not a bad showing for them, considering how what they've gone through with letting their coach go.
Yeah.
Number
8 USC in Colorado. That will be a 12 noon start. USC is 4-0 in that game. Also, number 1, the 2-time defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs will be traveling to take on Auburn at 3:30 at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Number 23 Missouri 4-0 taking on Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's 2-3 Missouri. Number 23 is 4-0 on the season. LSU and Ole Miss. Number 13 LSU and Ole Miss are both 3-1 on the season. The Oregon Ducks taking on the Stanford Cardinals. Oregon is 4-0, while Stanford is 1-3. Iowa State 2-0 taking on number 14 Oklahoma. Oklahoma Sooners are 4-0 on the season. Notre Dame and Duke 7:30 on Saturday. Notre Dame is 4-1, while number 17 Duke is 4-0 on the season. That's where College Game Day will be for their pregame show this week. The game of the week there. Nevada 0-4 taking on Fresno State, which is 4-0. That's a 10:30 game. Number 7 Washington 4-0 taking on Arizona, which is 3-1. South Carolina 2-2 taking on number 21 Tennessee, which is 3-1. Alabama 3-1 will be take on Mississippi State. The Mississippi State is 2-2, while Alabama is 3-1 on the season.
Okay, certainly interesting to see the game. Michigan, number 2 in the country, going into Nebraska unranked. That Nebraska has really continued to struggle since their move into the Big Ten, and could have a tough time with Michigan on Saturday. What do you think? How is that Nebraska? I mean, they used to, when they were in the Big 12, or Big 8 as it once was known. They were a dominant team in college football, but since they moved to the Big 10, they've struggled. They cite that there really aren't as many football players in Nebraska, and they've had trouble recruiting out of state. Is there hope for Nebraska?
I think there absolutely is hope for Nebraska. I mean, there is Nebraska is a storied program. I mean, if you got to look at it in parallel, if you want to look in parallel, look at Kansas, right? I mean, you look at a program that has been perennially in the doghouse, and now they're in the top 25, and they've had 2 years in a row where they've shown really, really well. They've got a good coach. And I watched that quite a bit just because that was something that Coach Monken was up for, and it's just interesting to see how those parallel paths, kind of diverge with each other. So it definitely, with the right coach and the right ability to recruit. I mean, it's tougher. Nebraska is not the sexiest place to go to school, but you can make it. You can make it a destination. You can rally around something. And bring a team in and bring some people from the portal and make themselves relevant again. I think I'll see what Rule does. Rule did a great job, a fantastic job at Temple. I think he lost his way when he left Temple. Did some good things in Baylor too, but then he's gotten away from, I think, what his core was about. I think he'll find that again, and they'll get where they need to be. For me, the biggest thing from this weekend coming up, I've been truly amazed with how pedestrian Alabama looks. And it's going to be an interesting game against Mississippi State. Mississippi State usually gives Alabama fits, and we'll see. I'm here's another upset alert. I think Mississippi State beats Alabama this week.
Okay. Speaking of coaching, one of the announcements from Army Athletics this past week was that head coach Jeff Monken's contract was extended, and we're all glad to hear that news. Came out last Monday, I believe, right after the game down at Texas San Antonio. And Coach Monken, in the press conference, talked about how much he and his family love being at West Point. What a good place it is he has found for his children to be and go to school, and how much he appreciates the responsibility of educating and leading and training the football team, all of whom members are going to become Army officers. And so it was good to see that he committed. There had been speculation that he might have been up for various jobs coming up this year, as any good coach is going to be. But he decided to make a further commitment to West Point, and I think all Army fans were pretty happy about that. What do you guys think, Steve and Sam?
Well, I mean, we kind of addressed this last week. I mean, we're definitely happy to see that Coach is extended And I've always been the optimist that believes that Coach Monken understands that he, on the one hand, that he is making history at West Point. He's the number 2 winningest coach at Army history. And he has the opportunity to continue that legacy and continue in pursuit of, Colonel Red Blake in terms of being the winningest coach in Academy history. And the flip side of that is that I believe Monken is totally read in and totally sold in on the mission of the military academy and the importance of what Corps Squad athletics and the football team means in his realm of the West Point universe, and that the football team is an extension of the military academy mission, and he embraces that. And in the Brotherhood, he is creating just some of the finest leaders, both on and off the field, and to be commissioned into our Army, not only for military service and leadership, but also for their civilian careers, even beyond, that they will be leaders for their lives. And not only that, they will be young men who will be brothers for the rest of their lives, and they will always be able to count on one another in any situation, any day, any time of the week. I kind of think that, and this is just me, I always got to throw around my own little theory. I also believe that part of the reason he extended is because tied into that is the ongoing talks with the AAC, because it only makes sense to at this point to go ahead and join a conference and to give Monken the opportunity to perform not only as an independent, but also within a conference with the Service Academy. And as we talked about last week, the reason I'm a little more optimistic about joining a conference this time as opposed to the Conference USA debacle is because of, as Steve pointed out, the dynamic of the AAC now is vastly different than the dynamic of the Conference USA that Army joined back at low tide, which really was the low tide of Army football. But also in the fact that the talent that Coach and his staff and their recruiting has been able to assemble at our Rockbound Highland home is at an all-time high. And therefore, Army, whereas is not the team that Monken fielded back in 2014, where, he would jokingly say that if a player went down, he would just put a cone out on the field to sub in for the player. That now he actually has the talent to be able to field a team that will be competitive in the AAC. And if somebody goes down, he actually has talent on the sideline that can come in and be the next man up. So yeah, happy for the continuity of the football team and happy for Coach Monken to be able to stay at West Point. I know all the alumni are very happy about this too.
And Ken, this is going to be an interesting concept for y'all. So, and it's not something that the average person is going to think about when it comes down to coach. But here's a glaring stat. Before Coach Monken was on board, the number of football players that went non-combat arms was astounding. And now, if you look at the leadership of the team, they're going infantry, they're going combat arms, hard combat arms. And that says a lot about the young men that's playing on that team and the teamwork that they're a part of. So he's imparting a mentality of warrior, leadership. And we didn't have that before. And if you look back to other coaching staffs, we had lost that loving feeling. And in terms of contract extensions, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the extension of Mark West, the sprint coach, who had his contract extended here recently. And I thought Sam Houston would enjoy the fact that the man that's running his sprint team is now under contract, providing continuity for that team also.
Yay.
There you go. Well, we'll wait and see what the news is on the American conference, if that's going to happen. I was told it might happen sooner than later. So we'll see what happens over the coming weeks. And we have a bye week. And Jack, just remind us, what are Navy and Air Force doing this weekend?
Air Force is taking on San Diego. They're hosting San Diego State this weekend, and Navy is going to be hosting South Florida. So it should be
Okay.
a couple interesting games. Also, another interesting game, Clemson is heading up to the Carrier Dome to take on Syracuse. Syracuse 9-point underdogs in that game.
Yeah.
Take the points. Take the points.
I imagine it'll be a big crowd and very noisy. There were about 35,000 there last Saturday. Seats about 50,000. So I imagine they will have a revved up full house for that game. And it's a pretty noisy environment. So any other comments tonight from the Army football huddle? Richard, a favorite game you're going to watch this weekend? Since you don't have an Army game, what are you going to watch?
Favorite game I'm gonna watch? Well, the Saturday night football game. I'm always like interested in the Saturday night football game. Notre Dame and Navy. I mean Notre Dame and Duke
this week. Yeah, that's going to be a big one.
Notre Dame and Duke.
Duke, people think Duke could make a strong impression on Notre Dame on Saturday. So it'd be interesting to see. Also, Colorado will be playing USC and see how they can. Deion Sanders' team can handle USC, which is trying to get on the upswing before it joins the Big Ten next year. It's gonna be hard to say that UCLA and USC in the Big Ten. We'll see.
The interesting thing, Ken, about that game of USC versus Colorado, there's going to be a game inside of a game with the two quarterbacks that are playing in that game, because they are going to be jockeying for which year and who's going to be the first pick in the NFL draft. If things continue on the way that they're going, because, both have another year of eligibility, who's going to come out this year, what pro team is going to be. They've already intimated the USC's quarterback already intimated, his dad said, hey, all the pundits are thinking that, if it's Arizona, that he wouldn't want to play for Arizona, so he'll stay and play at USC another year. And will, Sanders have any influence on, who comes out when, because of they want to be the first pick in the draft. So there's a lot of gamemanship within the gamemanship in this game if they both show very well.
I know a certain NFL team in New York or New Jersey that is in need of a quarterback. Might be interested.
The Jets.
Yep.
Yeah, they're certainly hurting a quarterback right now. But Steve, just picking up on your point, writers are commenting now about that top college football players are now more likely to stay in college an extra year because of name, image, and likeness funding, that they may make a fair amount of money, staying in college until they feel like the draft position is favorable to them. Is that as big a factor as people are starting to talk about?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you look at right now the amount of money through 4 games that Coach Sanders has brought to Colorado, it far surpasses, the money that they spent on him and bringing that program to where it is today. And that trickles down. It trickles down to the boosters and it trickles down to the nil dollars. It is now becoming a business within a business, and it's going to keep players. If players can make $3 to $4 million staying in college, and the one thing that really kind of, if you listen to NFL radio like I do a lot, the thing that they talk about a lot with the older ex-GMs and other things is, how many college games did you play in before you come to the NFL? Because the quarterbacks who play in more, the ones that rise up as a senior, like the Daniel Jones, and then all of a sudden he wasn't a senior, but he rises up and then he gets out, and then he's now playing. He played really one year at Duke. They don't seem to be as successful as the quarterback that have 30 starts. So now if you can have the 30 starts plus get the money, it gives them an opportunity to be better pros when they come out, and they get to choose which direction they want to go. So I think it's influencing college football a ton. I think probably for the better.
Well, when you say $3 to $4 million for a college player, I mean, it's astounding. I mean, it's getting well beyond pizza money for players, which had been a complaint not that long ago. The players didn't have any spending money who were on scholarship. So that it's all changed now. It's all changed. Okay, well, let's call it a night, and we'll look forward to having a bye week and getting set for Army hosting Boston College at Mikey Stadium a week from Saturday, and getting set for it's going to be an interesting October schedule. So I want to thank everybody. Richard Miller calling in from Florida.
Thank you, Ken. A pleasure.
And Jack McGuirk calling in from Pelham.
Thank
I
you.
always want to thank Jack for the great job he does on our Monday show, which just moved off of WVOX. We're doing it online after 15 years. And what a great job Jack is doing with his coverage of military news and veterans news. I always want to mention that.
Thank you.
And we have calling in from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, from the class of '87, Sam Houston. Colonel, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Ken, and thanks, everyone. A weekend without Army football means that you can go back and kiss the wife and kids and, enjoy yourself, take a little break, take a knee, and be ready for Boston College.
Yeah, maybe get a round of golf in this weekend. And Steve Shalou from the class of '92. Now, I got to say, it was nice to meet your classmate who was hosting the Association of Graduates tailgate up in Syracuse.
He said he's one of the finest people on earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to meet her. A nice event. And I have to tell you, it was nice to meet your fellow alumnus, Robert McDonald, the former chairman of Procter & Gamble, and also former secretary of the VA was at the event. I got a chance to meet him, and we're talking about maybe doing an interview, which would be an honor. So anyway, thanks everybody. And want to acknowledge one of our great sponsors, just finished up their last home stand. That is the 27-time world champion New York Yankees. And we're going to look forward to following them. They're actually going to be hosting Pittsburgh and Syracuse at Yankee Stadium on Veterans Day, 100th anniversary of college football at Yankee Stadium. They're going to be commemorating. We have a game at Army that day, but it should be an interesting game for Yankees, and it shows their support for college football, that game, and also obviously the Pinstripe Bowl in December. So we thank them for their support, and just thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week. Take care. This is Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military, and veterans proudly since 2008. Have a good day.